and happy Easter, everyone. I am pleased to be here today to talk to you a little bit about our hymn of the day for the second Sunday of Easter. It's number 470, O Sons and Daughters of the King, and you'll notice that it is in the Easter section of our hymn book that's on the top corner of your page there. And it is a fitting hymn not only for this season of Easter in general, but specifically for this Sunday. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. I first want to point out to you guys that the text is attributed to a man by the name of Jean Tisserand, who is most well known not for his hymn writing, but actually for the formation of a religious order for repentant prostitutes. Tisserand was a Franciscan monk who lived in the second half of the 15th century, and he founded that order. Daughters' Repentance, I think, is what it translates to in English, while he was preaching in Paris during his career as an evangelist, someone who traveled around and preached at various parishes. And this text that we get from him is set to a tune called Gelobt sei Gott, which means like praise to God. And it is a very catchy tune, one that you guys will probably know, and I have no concerns about us singing it this Sunday. I think we're going to do just fine. It's super easy. So I mentioned that it is appropriate not only for this season of the church year, but specifically for this week. And the reason for that is that it goes through the whole Easter story from, the tomb, the morning when the women arrive and the tomb is empty, all the way through to the end of our gospel reading for today, which is talking about Jesus appearing to the disciples and to Thomas when Thomas doesn't really trust that first appearance to the disciples. And that is what this hymn is. It is literally the Easter story set to text. And to get all of that in there, you're going to have not a short hymn. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, it is kind of a long hymn. It's 9 verses, but there are versions that have 12 verses. So just rest easy that we're only going to be singing 9 of them in church this Sunday. And we aren't going to be singing them all together either. I think it's interesting the way that this hymn is split up through the service. I was looking a little bit at our bulletin for this week. And if we look, we see that this hymn is not going to be set after our gospel reading, as the hymn of the day usually is, but during our gospel reading. Before we read the reading for this week, we are going to sing the first 3 verses of this hymn, and those first 3 verses talk about the events that we read last week in church that surround the tomb. Then we'll start reading our gospel for this week, and as we go through and we read about Jesus appearing to the disciples and Jesus appearing to Thomas, we're going to start adding in these other verses of the hymn that follow along with the story. So you're going to get a break in between, right, to rest your voices. So no worries. It's a long hymn, but we're going to spread it out. We're going to take some time to do it. And this hymn, like I said, really is the Easter story set to music. And honestly, that is one of my favorite things about hymns. Yes, hymns are songs of praise from us to God, but they also share messages from God with us. And that's my favorite thing. It's two-way communication. Even when we are praising him, he is feeding us. So as we prepare for this Sunday in service, I want you guys to remember next time you're going to complain about a hymn, about 9 verses of a hymn that we're going to sing, that God uses the hymns that we have in our book to feed us. We oftentimes think about worship and praising God as something that we do for him. But I want you guys to remember that the hymns are something that he also does for us. And I thank God for those every day. So we will see you guys in Sunday, and warm up your singing voices because we've got a lot to sing.